You're listening to the We Are Libertarians Podcast Network. Find all of our shows at wearelibertarians.com. You're listening to the We Are Libertarians Network. Learn more at wearelibertarians.com.
Just leave just enough room on it. Jesus, fine. All right.
I got.
Welcome to the Boss Hog of Liberty podcast. This is episode number 181 of East Central Indiana's favorite podcast. I'm Jeremiah Morrell. Today I am joined by co-host Dakota Davis, producer Zach Burcham. Who else we got, Dakota?
Today's episode features the two candidates for District 6, your District 6 congressional office. The two candidates that matter to us anyway. Those folks are Jeannine Lee Lake and Tom Ferkinhoff. Both of them have been on the show before because they are also past candidates. We're going to be talking to them about why they are running. We're also going to be talking about some of the biggest issues that are facing our nation today, from division inside of America, the COVID-19 pandemic, healthcare in the United States, the economy, and of course, climate change. So make sure you stick around to the end to hear all of these interesting topics.
Really what we're here for is we're here to corner them both and get them to commit that if they do win the seat in Congress, we're going to be the co-host for their congressional podcast.
Hey, I'm in for it.
That's what we're doing.
I'll commit to that.
I want to be one of your 20 staffers.
I told somebody at work today, I said, if one of these two wins and I have to go be a staffer, I'm going to make a third of the money I want to make, and I'm going to be twice as old as everybody else that's working there.
Right.
It's going to be horrible.
Yeah.
Dakota would fit in.
Absolutely.
I'm 37. I'd be the world's oldest congressional rookie staffer.
I'll just hang out at your office here.
Yeah, we can open up an office in Newcastle.
That's perfect.
That'd be great. Have you guys had an office here through the 6th District before?
No, not in my memory.
That I know
Okay.
of.
Probably back when Ralph Harvey was in Congress in the 50s.
Oh, gosh.
We probably had
Yeah.
a district office here. But it's been a while. At least I can remember back to Macintosh, and nobody's had a Newcastle office. So
Wow.
it is time. All right. This show is about our lives in rural Indiana. We're here to push your boundaries and make you think as individuals. Sometimes we'll provoke you. Other times we'll make you laugh. But hopefully you'll always learn something new. We just recorded about 15 minutes of Patreon, and I learned all kinds of stuff new, Dakota.
That's right, you did. Patreon.com/Boss Hog of Liberty. That's where you can go to support the show every month. That is the club of folks who get all kinds of bonus content. We talked about a gift that they are about to receive in the mail just for being Patreon members. Those are also the folks that pay the bills around this place. It's getting to be wintertime, so they pay for the heat. They also keep this show from being riddled with commercials. If you've ever listened to Ben Shapiro's podcast, it is horrific. He stops every 10 minutes and does a 10-minute ad read every 10 minutes of his actual show.
With
and
the
it's
guest
just so
sitting
annoying.
there. It was awkward. I just watched one. I didn't know it until yesterday.
I didn't either. I listened to the Daily Wire's like post debate show, and it's got like 6 different hosts, and they're all talking about the debate. And then like every 15 minutes or so, each one of the hosts would take a turn reading about stamps.com or some other crap. And I was like, this is just it. It was so cringy. I was like, I'm so glad that we don't do that on Boss Hog.
All right, now it's time for Zach Burcham to tell us about Manscaped. Zach?
And
This is a weird time to bring up that we sold our sponsorship.
Yeah.
No.
And the biggest reason that we don't have to do that is because the people who are in the $50 or more a month club, and those folks are Christy Avery, Jonathan Phillips, Anthony Meyer, and Mr. Chris Lamb. We also have our T-Chip stores, tchip.com/BHO1, 2, 3, or 4. The first 3 are all T-shirts. The 4th is the Protect Yourself line, which is our masks. And then we also have a BHOL mug, and that is for your coffee mug. We got a cool picture of a longtime listener who bought the first mug that we ever released.
Yes.
Which was just a plain white coffee mug, and it had our very first logo on it. And then he had it sitting right next to his brand new mug, which is color changing. Did he mention that?
No, I didn't see that.
I think one of them's color changing.
I need to go over to Dayton and check his mugs out.
And it has the brand new logo on it. It's nicer. And they are somehow the same price as they were back then.
We need to get ourselves a
good
couple
people.
of those mugs for this place and drink
probably should.
our spirits out of the mugs, like we're Regis and Kathy Lee or whatever. Who hosts that show now, Tom? You don't do much in the mornings.
Last I knew it was Michael Strahan.
Michael Strahan and
it's Kathy Lee and the other guy that was on the Ryan Seacrest.
right? What? Kathy
Ryan?
Lee's back?
No, I'm sorry. I said Kathy Lee. I meant. Oh God, that shows my
After she
age.
buried her husband, I guess she came back.
No, it's Ryan Seacrest and
Kelly Ripa?
Kelly Ripa.
Is it Kelly Ripa?
Yes, and you got me off with
Ryan
that Michael Strahan thing. Oh my gosh, yeah, we'll get it together.
Oh, gosh.
One other piece of housekeeping that we had before we get started with the two candidates is that, this has been our candidate series. We've always tried to cover the most local races, and keeping with the theme that we established last year. The very last episode that we did was the most high-profile race in the area.
We did the state senate district, whatever, the northern portion of Henry County, southern Delaware.
Yeah.
Who was that?
With Gaskell,
Mike Gaskell, Dave Cravens, and
Greg Nolan.
Greg Nolan. Yeah. I can't believe I forgot Greg's name.
Yes.
Oh, well. Sorry, Greg.
Oh well, you're very flippant. Yeah, we did the only debate that they had.
Yep.
And I don't know. This may be the only. We'll call it a debate. This might be the only one that these two have appeared at, and at least in person.
It is.
At least in person, yeah.
under the
Yeah.
TV lights. And we've got a chair for Congressman Pence over there too, if he needs.
If he wants to.
If he comes in late.
Right now,
We call
bottles
him
of water
Ghost
sitting-
Greg.
Ghost Greg, yeah.
Ghostly Greg.
Some
Ghostly
listeners
Greg.
may notice, though, that this year there have been no county council candidates that have come on our show.
We had it planned.
Yes, we
I
did.
had them lined up for Tuesday night, and then there was an incident.
All right, producer Zach was going to be hosting that show. It was going to be a great time. There was going to be like 6 people sitting around this table, having a big in-depth conversation about the issues that face the county financially. And then there was a cake. Right?
So yeah. The story that I have, I've not seen anything officially in writing, but put my
We're the
reporter hat
media.
on, talking to folks. It sounds like a cake was served, and there were some people talking in an open. When you have the story I got from the governor of New York is that as long as you're eating something more substantial than a chicken wing, and I think a cake counts, you can't get COVID or pass it around.
Mm-hmm.
So they had this meeting before the county council meeting,
Celebration.
celebrating the jail. There was a hey, we built a jail cake. It was decorated like the jail, or they spent the money to build the jail, or they committed to build the jail. It turns out somebody in that meeting tested positive for COVID. Everybody consumed the poisoned cake at that point, and now all of the county council has been instructed to quarantine.
All of county government, for the
pretty
most
much all of
part.
county government is quarantining. I think we're lawless right now
Until
guys.
November 6th.
Until Friday after the election. So
Who's going to run the election? I'm like, wait a second. What are they doing over there?
I think they have staff.
Listen,
Okay.
I
New
think they
people
have
are
staff.
coming in. Okay.
Typically-
I'm still planning on going election day. If there's nobody there, I'll
Just put your ballot and slide it in underneath the door.
I'll probably write a note, or I'll slide in a.
Here was my
I'll probably
thoughts.
turn the live stream on and go be like, "Hey, why aren't we having an election today?"
Typically,
I was promised.
It's postponed. No, I'm just kidding.
No, you're going to cause an uproar.
I know,
You're going to cause an uproar on us.
Typically, the Republicans have a pretty snazzy party with refreshments at the Primo restaurant here in Newcastle, which is a fine restaurant. My thought is there's going to be barely anybody there because they're all in quarantine on election night. So it's going to be a great party to crash. Be a fake Republican for the night. Go grab some refreshments.
Well, the other side of this building, the Libertarian headquarters, is hosting a party as
That's
well.
where we
And
can get our refreshments
And
from.
I suppose the Democrats are probably gathering somewhere as well, or somehow socially distanced gathering. I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, that's why there was no council episode. We tried, but man, 2020 is the year where stuff happens. So
We could have just had Steve Peckinpah in here by himself, I guess.
yeah, I felt bad. I really felt bad canceling on those that weren't in the quarantine deal. But hey, here we are. We're able to make the
It's
congressional
Thursday
one
and
work.
we've hit the ground running.
That's right. All right. So on my right, candidate Jeannine Lee Lake, our friend. You were here in 2018.
I was.
Well, for round 1. And I don't think you've stopped running for Congress since then.
No, I have not. It feels like it. I wanted to take a little break and then you know what? If you're going to do this game, there's really no time to break. I mean, maybe save for just a few months.
Now you did you got the big attention grabbing deal last time with David Letterman hosting the big fundraiser.
Yes.
I saw he was in town with Peyton Manning. So did Peyton Manning and David Letterman host a fundraiser for you last week? Is that what happened?
Well, I was trying to get him to go ahead and come out to my house, but actually I was gone the day that they were there.
Oh,
and so I was really upset. But we had some plans that we couldn't change. And so I did know that they were around and there was nothing that we could do. But they reached out. His campaign had reached out to us earlier, and I think they donated to us again. So they're very kind. And Dave, he's just, it still kind of boggles my mind when I look back at that period and think just how coincidental it was that I ran into him at that coffee shop. And then, he told me, he was like, if you win the primary, I'll come back and then do the house party for you. And I was like, but Willie, I was like, I don't know. But yeah, he made good on that. And since then, he's been a friend of our campaign. And so, yeah, that was 2018. And I don't think he's doing he certainly, as far as I knew, he was one of the ones in Hollywood that was taking the COVID pretty seriously. He's 70. So,
yeah,
he's kind of in the high risk category, but couldn't be more kind. But yeah, it's great to be here. You guys are always, I said on my page, smart and witty.
We try. Tom, you've got Conan O'Brien doing a big fundraiser for you on Saturday night, right?
I'm sure he'll show up for that.
Tom, tell us about yourself. This is round 2 for you.
It is round 2 for me.
You're sporting the Don Rainwater for Governor shirt, by the way.
I see that.
Yes, I am. I'm looking forward to the Rainwater administration.
Is that because
are you going to be a part of that?
Yeah.
Not if he's in Congress.
Oh, that's right.
You can only have so many jobs.
Right.
Are you wearing this because you don't have any more Ferkinhoff shirts? They've just been too popular.
Just in too high a demand. I gave the one off my back away, and
yeah, I understand. I totally get it. So, Tom, we'll start with this question with you first. Why did you decide to put your hat in the ring a second time?
Because I still had the signs.
Because government didn't get any smaller, Dakota.
Exactly. Government did not get any smaller. I enjoyed the experience the first time. The first time I felt called to run, and that calling hasn't gone away. And thought we'll continue to build the name recognition and continue to preach the gospel of smaller government and the libertarian philosophy. If I can get that platform to be able to speak to thousands of people.
And it's a guaranteed invitation on the Boss Hog of Liberty, man. Come on.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a good place to go. All right. And you are, by trade, you're the accountant to the stars.
I'm a certified public accountant.
Big businesses nobody's ever heard of, but they're very important to the local economy.
Some of those quarantined Henry County officials are my clients. As a matter of fact.
And Jeannine, what you've got a history in media. I know that.
Yes. I've been.
So what's been keeping you busy the last couple of years? What's the day job? What's the background?
Well, I've been a newspaper reporter for the last 30 years. I own my own business now called The Good News. We took over the Muncie Times coverage area in 2008, and so we've done that since for the last 12 years. But then I've also been a mother of 4, and a community leader. I have a group called Feed My Sheep Muncie Incorporated, which feeds about 2,000 people every Thanksgiving and Christmas. And so working part-time, becoming and being a community leader has kind of kept me busy when I'm not running for office. You asked why I decided to run again. And, quite honestly, I was hoping maybe that the current congressman would, have some give me reasons not to run. But beginning with the fact that he refused to vote in support of the Violence Against Women Act in early of 2019. Almost as soon as he got in, he was one of just a handful of naysayers against that protects women and domestic violence victims and sexual assault victims.
Did that pass into law?
Yes, it did. Without him,
it passed. With that,
yeah. It was Senator Ornhatch and Joe Biden's original legislation, and a good piece of legislation. It closed the boyfriend loophole that was kind of a bad thing that was in the original one, and so there's a lot of reasons then why I felt compelled to run, and most of all, I just feel like, inside the word representative, and I mentioned that last time, is the word present. He has refused to hold any town halls. He's refused to, be a part of any debates. With
there
Tom
has been
and
a
myself.
pandemic.
Yeah, exactly. But he was social distancing long before the virus hit.
That's good.
Hit Indiana. He was way into the closet with regards to that.
He was ahead of his time on that.
He really was. So yeah, he's been.
You need to clip that and make that a radio ad.
But he was social distancing long before COVID. Yeah. It's true. So yeah, I gave him the benefit of the doubt. I didn't necessarily like too many of his policies, and he said there's no daylight between himself and his brother Mike Pence, a vice president, as well as
there's a little bit of daylight because I heard that he had to use a fictitious address. He won't let him live with him, so he had to say he still lives at the governor's mansion.
Here's
Paul
the thing.
Ogden wrote a thing today that said
I think
it might not be legal.
There's a big
It's not.
difference. I think there's a big difference between Vice President Pence and his brother Greg Pence, and that is that at least you know what Greg Pence believes.
Yeah, that's true.
Mike Pence.
Mike.
Mike
I know what you
Pence.
meant.
Sorry. Yeah. At least you know him.
Right.
You've seen his actual ideas. You really have no idea what Greg thinks about anything.
No.
He just kind of is one of those. He's one of those Congress members that everybody complains about because they just follow whatever the party thinks.
100%.
So it's just kind of annoying.
Well, because even if, with Mike, we had things that I disagreed with him on. But actually, in terms of being a representative, he was here all the time.
He did great constituent service. He used to hold
Absolutely.
town halls right down the road here at the Newcastle Library.
Right.
I was on a first name basis with the three Congress people that have come before Greg Pence.
Really?
David McIntosh, Luke
Sharp.
Messer, and Mike Pence. Okay. All three of them, I could get a hold of them, talk to them, visited them in their offices. Not so much with this one.
No.
And I've tried. I went to his office, and turns out he was Muncie that day.
Oh, conveniently.
Yeah. He's been playing tag.
Has he? He hasn't been here at the Boss Hog of Liberty show?
Not yet. But we're trying. We're still trying. All right. So here's where I wanted to start off the digging into the issues side. Throughout the summer that we're into the fall, Dakota and I have had this conversation about how it feels like we're reliving 1968 again, and all of the unrest that's going on in our country. We're seeing, I've traveled to New York State. I've traveled to a number of different places, and it looks like Gary, Indiana does with boarded up windows.
Yeah.
My wife hasn't been to her office downtown Indianapolis since March. We've got looting. We've got, civil unrest with the George Floyd case and many others. COVID that's and mask mandates and everything else that's created this wild attitude. What do you think, Jeannine?
Well,
this is definitely a time, like a shaping time.
Right. It was. And 1968 was the year before I was born. So I don't want to date myself back a year, like a time machine kind of thing. But I know the feeling that you're talking about. And it does. I mean, it's insane. Like, it just feels like everything that could possibly go insane and crazy about 2020 keeps happening. With regards to what you said about the rioting, I do have to say this, that in the 6th district, the 19 counties that we're part of, almost 720,000 people, there actually have been 0 arrests of rioting, of vandalism. We've had multiple, I think I stopped counting in about 42, protests, marches, vigils that I was invited to, that surrounded the Black Lives Matter events that happened after George Floyd. And within this district, at least the 6th district,
well behaved.
Yeah, they well behaved, which fares well for us. However, my brother, he has friends that owned a jewelry shop down in Indianapolis, like you said, with your wife, and or down in that area, they set that place on fire, and it's really was so disheartening to see, because then it takes away from the real issues of people that were of all different races and backgrounds and genders and sexual orientations that really came together to discuss the need for prison reform and just criminal justice reform. So yeah, it feels weird. I had COVID back in March, late March, early April. I've had family members that have had it. I was pretty much fine. I kind of felt like I just had a sinus infection. My sister was hospitalized twice. My brother got it. My dad has it right now. So it's been the crazy year from hell almost, but, America's strong, and I think that we're coming back. The economy looks good. But we also have, definitely some major questions going into next week, and Amy Coney Barrett, that was huge. So lots of news, right?
Yeah, it's exciting. We got another woman on the Supreme Court, so it's like a one for one thing. It's great.
I want RGB back.
Tom, what's your take on the summer of 2020? Is this 1968 again?
Yeah, the summer of 2020. I mean, I don't think it's very different than 1968 in that I think 1968 was really a grassroots swelling. I feel like today there are forces that want to see the country divided.
Right.
I mean, there are powerful people who profit from the division. And I think that fuels a lot of what we see.
Oh, we've seen that come out in
It's,
national intelligence reports with, Saudi Arabia, the country of Russia, all working to sow division amongst Americans to try to just make us doubt the power of our electorate. It's it's not in the direction of any particular candidate or party. They don't really care who's in office. They just want you to hate your neighbor.
Right.
Exactly. And some of that's deserved. I mean, nobody interferes more in foreign elections than the U.S. has in the last 20 years.
Right. Yeah.
I mean,
Saudi Arabia.
You see how upset
like,
people are over, foreign interference in our Russians, yet we were fine with the CIA hacking Angela Merkel's cell phone and, interfering, the last time Putin ran, that, the State Department tried to interfere on behalf of his opponent. And so, we shouldn't be surprised if Russia wants to.
What's good for the goose is good for the gander, essentially.
Yeah.
So as America has been the most divided, Tom, that I've ever seen it. I mean, obviously we had a civil war, so we're probably not as divided as we were then, but it's still very significant. Why do you think that we are so divided right now? And how do you think what hand do you think the federal government has in uniting Americans again?
Yeah. And like I say, I think the media profits from making the situation worse and making it seem like it's worse. When you talk to everyday people, people get along. People want to see people come together. People want to see improvements in a lot of areas. As far as, what the federal government can do, criminal justice reform, stop the war on drugs. I mean, when you talk about the disparity in the number of bad incidents between Black Americans and the police force, I mean, how much of the violence in our inner cities relates to the drug wars and the gang wars and who, when we see the opioid and heroin epidemic, who can't get a hold of drugs now that wants them? What good are we doing by throwing people in jail for drug use and even dealing? I mean, at what point do we say, we're better off to put our money toward prevention, education, rehabilitation, and stop making it profitable to run this black market and the violence that people are living under in these cities?
For the people of Indiana, something that Congress can do very quickly. Tuesday night in the governor's debate, you heard Governor Holcomb say, I won't, this is the excuse he's using, but you can call him on it if Congress makes this change. Cannabis is still illegal federally, right? 34 states, 33 states have ignored that, and they're fine with it for medical, and more than 10 states are okay for recreational, or for just no scheduling at all. If Congress were to go in and remove that, just like they did with hemp 2 years ago, so that our farmers can grow hemp down in our community, if they pull that back, then you've taken that excuse away from the Governor Holcombs of the world that say, well, the federal government says I can't. Well, no, now they say it's okay, so now you got to actually lead.
Yeah, it's like with 34 states, that should be a no-brainer to get marijuana off the Schedule A.
Absolutely. What do you think about it, Jeannine? Why do you think we're so divided, and what do you think that the federal government could do to help unite Americans?
Well, I don't think I'm a libertarian when it comes to that. I don't think that's it's the federal government's role to necessarily be responsible for that. I think that starts in the home, because I don't care what the president said. I have a friend, she's a banker, vice president of First Merchants. Her name is Erin Sylvester. And I remember after we had our current president was elected in 2016, she's a Caucasian woman. She has a child, and she has a best friend. The little girl has a best friend, and the little girl was kind of questioning her, and she's like, "We know what's going to happen right now, or do we have to be worried?" And my friend's worried, and Erin said, "I just told her." She's like, "You know what? Our family is our family. We don't follow anybody. We raise our children to think that everyone's equal. Everyone should have equal protection under the law, and that we know how to treat people here." And so I do believe that it starts in the family. However, I also think that you can gaslight. You can have people that have those loud voices and those loud platforms. I think when you have a leader that refuses to denounce white supremacy when he has given the chance on a worldwide stage in the middle of a debate, when they say things like to the Proud Boys to stand down and stand by, that is a clarion call for, I believe, the inciting of violence. And so I think those kind of things can fan the flames. But I just, one of the things that I love about running and have loved in 2018 and 2020 is I agree with Tom in terms of where we're at, and even in Indiana, which I say even in Indiana. But honestly, there are definitely, my feeling as an African American, a female, and the only Black woman running as a federal candidate here, I don't see a lot of racism in terms of my everyday encounters with people. And that's not to say that I don't believe in systemic racism, because I know that it's there. I know it is there in terms of our prison, which is really just modern day slavery. It's taken some of my white female friends to really give me information about, the privatizing of prisons, and the fact that those prisons are going to be filled up mainly with Black people and brown people.
The incarceration rates for a guy that looks like me versus the guy that doesn't look like me,
yes,
are about 4-1 for the same crime.
Absolutely. And, and so.
And it's not because I'm a better guy or have a better lawyer.
So you kind of,
right.
You kind of think the federal government's job is to foster a place for families to grow together and have positive working environments to raise their children in.
Right.
And diverse environments.
And it should be across the board.
Right. But
in terms of actually how we're teaching our children and what we're telling our children in terms of how to behave and treat one another, that starts at home. And so, I implore everyone that's a Hoosier, that's a resident of the 6th district that's under the sound of this voice, look and take stock of what you're doing in your own circles. What does that mean? Are you welcoming? Are you affirming? Are you gaslighting? Are you repeating those things? Because at the end of the day, our problems here are not necessarily the problems that other places have. Newcastle, I don't know what Newcastle's, situation is with you guys as police. Do you have police brutality issues, or do you have people that are more sensitive to those issues? And I think that we can demand it in our own communities.
I think Newcastle had an incident last year that got dealt with very, very well. Mm-hmm. I think they were very open and transparent, and I think there was an issue down by Baker Park, and they had an internal investigation, and every bit of sunshine that you wanted to see on the issue came out. I think the Newcastle Police Department did a really good job. It was very
transparent. And see, that's the great thing about having a smaller community. This is a city of 20,000 people, a county of 50,000 people. Everybody knows multiple police officers here.
Okay.
And whenever that's the case, whenever you have a small, tight-knit community and they know that they're going to see the same people day after day, year after year, it fosters an environment to where it's not so disconnected. Okay. I guess it's not. There's no enemy in Newcastle. I think in a lot of cities, part of the problem, we've talked about it on the show multiple times, that the government has done such a horrible job in inner cities in the past and creating huge issues themselves. And then they feel like the only solution to that is just more police. But it's not more police.
Right.
It's proper training for the police that you have, creating community outreach events, making the police effective.
Yes.
And
Giving the police the right tools like body cams.
right.
Everybody needs body cam.
Ending qualified immunity. It's, those
No
are
knock warrants those need to go.
these are all
Breonna Taylor should be alive. Let me just throw that in.
I'm really excited. So many of the issues that you guys are talking about are the things that the folks in my party, the Libertarian Party, have talked about for 10 or 15 years.
Yeah.
And I love it when our good ideas get picked up by the folks on Team Donkey and Team Elephant, because then they become law. If my guy can't win, at least my ideas start to become law. And I love that you're running on some of them.
so Jeannine.
And they always act like it's the first time they know.
You're
I
like,
had
hey,
a great idea.
a decade ago. Look over here.
Somebody's been reading Reason magazine or something. I don't know what's going on.
So, Jeannine, you said that it looked like the economy was bouncing back, and it was before the pandemic hit, the COVID-19 pandemic. The economy was doing great,
It was sailing in terms of Wall Street, right?
right? I mean, but that also, my 401k as a blue collar worker with no college degree, I still saw a huge amount of money go towards my retirement because the economy was doing well, and that is a very big deal for Americans everywhere. However, citizens all over America's Rust Belt, especially like the Newcastle community, they're finding it very difficult to find jobs that previously their parents had held that were able to support a family on a single income. It seems like that doesn't happen anymore. Do you think that the federal government has a hand in creating high-paying jobs for blue-collar America, revitalizing manufacturing towns, or is this kind of a situation to where technology might be making these jobs obsolete in the future anyway, and we need to invest in like education and things along those lines?
Very much so. I mean, and yes, the economy was doing, steadily along before COVID-19. But I've always wondered, like, how is it that Wall Street can just be kicking along, and then at the same time too, because I chair the group called Feed My Sheep, and we work with a group called Second Harvest Food Bank. There's back in January, there were still pretty long lines of like 400 or 500, 600 lines, cars of people that were waiting for food, and so these jobs, I believe, these people, I think they're still the result of lower minimum wage type of positions. We don't really offer, I believe, enough opportunities for people to really be educated to be able to receive the higher paying jobs. And I don't necessarily know that. I think that there's this chasm that still exists between Main Street Joe, Main Street, and Wall Street. Roger, I don't know what to say, but there's just this chasm that still exists that doesn't quite let the everyday man buy into the idea that yes, the stock market is sailing, but somehow there's still that disconnect, and it's very real. And then obviously COVID hit, and you have some people right now that between the fact that their kids are being quarantined every four weeks or every 4 days, and sometimes it seems like they're getting back to work, but then these mothers are like, well, how am I supposed to take off another 2 weeks? And I mean, it's just been crazy.
This has been a year of just absolutely rolling with the punches. It's constantly
you have
changing.
to.
Tom, she talked about the lower wages you see in areas like this one in Newcastle, Muncie, even Richmond. But I imagine some of your clients are business owners that are also struggling to get people to take the jobs that they have available, right?
Oh, that's the number one issue I have with my clients right now. They cannot find people to take jobs. I mean, starting pays from $12 to $18 an hour with benefits, and get 0 applicants.
$18 an hour, and you can't find workers.
Can't find, you get 3 people apply, and none of them show up for an interview, for their scheduled interview.
I saw McDonald's was hiring line cooks part-time for $11 an hour in Newcastle, which seemed really high to me. I don't know if it is. I was like, oh, wow.
we're seeing $10, $11 an hour for. In fact, I saw Best Buy advertising $15 an hour starting out in Richmond right now, trying to find employees.
So, do you think folks are staying on the sideline because of the additional unemployment they were getting from the CARES Act?
I think that's a huge part of it. I mean, Indiana had 10% unemployment until that first bonus round ran out, and it dropped to 7%. 30% of the people who were unemployed went and took jobs because they thought they were not going to get it. And then they brought it back at $400, but now they couldn't quit their job because they wouldn't get it again. But everybody else still stayed on the sidelines because
I guess my biggest point in the question was not about how the job market is doing specifically. It's more about how are we going to get the high paying jobs back, right. Because it used to be the standard where you had one parent that went to work and provided a living and a decent living, and one parent could always stay home with their children. And I would like to see a return to that as a societal norm. My question is, how do we get there? Do you kind of have to encourage that environment?
Well, one, get the federal government out of schools. I think a lot of kids get discouraged because, they have to study for this test that's going to determine their future, but nothing they learn on for that test is going to help them in their future. The teachers can't prepare kids for what the real life jobs are in this town because they've got to teach them what they need to know for that test. Let the teachers use their skills to prepare kids. Like Jay County Vocational School, they don't teach kids to weld as much anymore as to repair the welding robots. Skills that will be very high paying and very much in demand on that. And, the schools need to be able to look at, what are the jobs in this area? And then second of all, continue the push to cut back on the unnecessary regulation.
Yeah, it needs it. I totally agree.
Up until 2017, if your company wanted to do business with the federal government, you had to go through annual certification that you were Y2K compliant, that your computers weren't going to crash and all your systems wouldn't crash when the year 2000 hit 16 years ago. And it's like, why did the previous administrations not get rid of that?
And that's not an act of Congress. That's just simply regulators, right?
Exactly.
That's the bureaucracy of an agency.
So do you support a higher minimum wage on the federal level? There's been the fight for 15 and things. We're still at $7.25, which is the federal minimum wage right now. Indiana is not any higher than that either.
I think people do better when there's a minimum wage set by the market and not by the government. It's like you said, the minimum wage right now in small towns
doesn't really even matter.
It's $10, $11 an hour. You're not going to get employees if you're paying less than that. You won't get a high school kid if you're paying less than that.
You're saying what $15 an hour? You've essentially gotten to the point where the minimum wage has become antiquated in this world because the actual wage is almost double what the minimum wage is.
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah. Well, then why won't they go ahead and just pass it?
But if people want to get ahead, that has to be the mindset. To just say, we're going to artificially give everybody a raise to $12, $15 an hour. One, you've brought in inflation that's going to hurt all the people who live out there on fixed incomes. The older people who just have their IRAs that are, they've got annuity paying $500 a month. Well, that's never going to go up.
The purchasing power that's going to decrease.
The purchasing power that's going to decrease. There's a lot of those people that you're hurting when you just artificially create inflation. And, we saw it last time when minimum wage increased. You have shift leaders making $9 an hour, the new workers making $4.50 an hour. Well, they bump minimum wage quickly up to $7.25. Those shift leaders are now making $9.50, not much more than minimum wage.
There's not much of a spread any longer.
There's not much of a spread, and they've lost their incentive to better themselves and to work toward that higher job. And but I think in the last few years, as wages have increased by the market, we've started to see people to be able to improve themselves by improving their job skills and positions.
I think that every time that we raise the minimum wage, they kind of wait until it becomes a moot point to where they raise it to $7.25. Well, there's already very little jobs that were paying the minimum wage at the time. So you get or what was it, $4.50 or something like that before they raised it to $7.25.
When I was a boy, I remember minimum wage was around $5.15 an hour, and I think it moved to the $7.50. And I think in 20 years of working, it's moved once.
$5.15.
$5.15.
So yeah,
in around 2000, somewhere in that range.
My point is
around the year 2000
that there weren't a lot of jobs that were paying $5.15 an hour.
No, I was making $7.50, so I was killing it for my first job.
So they
You're
kind
doing
of
more than what it
they
is
kind
now.
of always wait until the wages get to the point where they want to raise it, and there's barely anybody making minimum wage anyway, and then they go ahead and decide to raise it, which is probably what's going to happen again. Which, I mean, honestly, is probably the smart way to do it.
The challenge
you wouldn't have that.
The challenge that
artificial
critics
inflation.
bring up, Jeannine, is that high school person with no skills, if we take the wage and we say we got to pay you $15 an hour versus $8 an hour now,
Right.
that would pay you starting out, we can't afford to have you not know anything, so you have to
Right.
bring skills.
There's been
I understand that. I mean,
There's
that's
been
a
talk
concern's
about
valid.
age differentiating minimum wages, which would solve that problem. Absolutely, you would have a different set.
Well,
of
then you don't
wages
have equal
before you
protection
turn
under the law.
18.
I think that's unconstitutional, Dakota.
Well,
Well,
that's for
I'm guessing
The
that's
teenagers
what,
wouldn't like that.
I'm
for
guessing
Amy.
that's the challenge you're going to have.
Right.
that's for Amy Comey Barrett to decide. That's
Yeah.
not me.
What do
That's
you
the
guys
Supreme
think
Court.
of her, by the way? Just
I don't know enough
I-
to be honest.
do
with
you think it's kind of weird that, you know, in Indiana, I'm just going to throw this out there really fast. There was a woman by the name of Myra Selby.
Myra Selby, the Supreme Court Justice.
You've heard about that thing. Because in 2016, when Barack Obama had nominated her to the 7th Appellate Court, and Mitch McConnell blocked that nomination, and the next year, Amy Coney Barrett got in, and then 3 years later,
She's Supreme Court Justice.
she's Supreme Court Justice.
Here's where I'm at with the federal court system mess.
Mm-hmm.
They were very wrong to not give Merrick Garland a hearing
Absolutely.
4 years ago. When he was nominated, they should have had the stones to have hearings in the Senate and to vote yes or no. And they should, if it got out of the Judicial Committee, it should have gone to the floor of the Senate, and the senators should have voted yes or no.
Mm-hmm.
If they didn't consent and didn't think Merrick Garland was good, or if they needed to go on the record and say, you know what, we're voting no and he's done, then that's a Robert Bork situation, and you're going to get a different justice after that.
Right.
But they should have done their jobs and brought him in. The president, no matter what day of the calendar is, the president should be able to nominate.
I agree.
So that was the 2016 answer. My answer in 2020 is still the same. The timing is very difficult for the Democrats, and they're looking, if Trump wins, you're looking at a real problem for the Democrat minority, because you've got two more justices that are of retirement age. We've talked about that on the show in the past, where Trump could get two more appointments in the next session, maybe
absolutely.
three. So it's a significant issue, and that the judges could get younger and younger.
This was his third one, right?
This was the third in 4 years.
Right.
Yeah,
It was a Gorge.
he's had Gorsuch, he's
Kavanaugh.
had
Kavanaugh,
and now Barrett. So I
Kavanaugh.
don't have a problem with them doing the hearings this time,
Mm-hmm.
but man, consistency is my number one. That's my number one issue.
Well,
Let's-
it's setting the precedence, that's for sure.
Let's get back to the notes here.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
I don't think Jeannine got to talk about
I wanted to
the wages,
talk to you about the minimum wage, Jeannine, and
minimum wage, maximum wage, anything with wages. This is your
Yeah.
chance.
Well, I think it should be raised up. I mean, I think
What do you-
that $7.25 is
Do you think-
because some people still are getting that. People tell
You wanna
me
go
every
for-
day that they're
is 40 all right?
$15. I think is probably where it should be. Didn't they just vote on that this just a few months ago for
Yeah.
a $10 increase? And I think Congressman Greg Pence voted against it.
So the Democrats control the House, so their
I'd probably
agenda
vote against the
continues to
$10
push through.
increase, too.
So they got to 15, and they couldn't get a hearing in the Senate.
Right.
I would probably say yes to like a $5 increase right now, because I think that the majority of starting wages are at that point.
You'd make a
already.
good congressman if you want to do stuff that doesn't matter anyway. You just want to rename post offices?
Well, I want it to.
what do you?
I want it
If
to,
it's not going to make a difference, why waste my
Get-
time?
Well, my
Just no
reasoning is
precedent. It needs to be
that
higher than $7.25.
I think that it doesn't. I think it protects workers if things start sliding backwards.
Right.
But you also do away with the artificial inflation of fast food jobs, people who are trying to go out to eat, and their food's not going to be artificially inflated. The prices aren't, because it's already at that point anyway. So I think it's kind of a medium ground there.
The medium ground is let the market work, man. You can, if you don't
it's already working.
If they're not paying you enough, then you go somewhere else. Tom's got 14 customers trying to hire. Call Tom and he'll tell you where you can go get a job.
But the problem we have with that system is that, like I just said, you have to have two parents that are working full-time jobs in order to get by in today's economy.
Not if you can make making $18 an hour or $15 an hour.
That's what I mean.
You'll be all right.
$15 an hour. I want that to be $30 an hour.
That's the staggering thing to think about, is not even figuring for inflation. That's what people were making here in manufacturing jobs when I was a kid.
In 1986.
Yes.
Right.
In like the 80s and 90s, you were making
$30
an hour. And then with overtime and everything, I remember talking to a guy and he's like, yep, I made $90 an hour on Easter. And he sat and waited for something to break. And he wasn't doing anything. I mean, that was part of the problem. But don't even figure for inflation. And it was $30 an hour in the 80s and the 90s.
There has to be a middle ground there. That was too high, obviously. And we completely shut out all of our manufacturing jobs because it was the labor costs were incredibly expensive. But now we've gotten to the position where there's nothing made in America anymore. There's not a single piece of technology that gets made in this country. Try to find a cell phone that's made in America.
Or a television.
They don't exist.
Yeah.
And we've kind of done that to ourselves. And I mean, I think that this kind of leads into the next question. We'll start with you, Jeannine. With President Trump trying to put in trade tariffs on China, the trade war that was going on, big deal. I know it's kind of been buried in the news because of COVID and everything recently. But I think it's really important. Because
we have a trade war over TikTok.
Yeah. I want to know what you think.
Can't download the app. It's criminal.
I want to know what you think about the tariffs.
Well, I don't think they've served us well. I think that I obviously understand what President Trump was trying to do. Unfortunately, his bullying tactics and what he, I guess, thought was going to happen with China, and inflicting tariff after tariff after tariff. It just didn't work. I mean, farmers suffered, manufacturers suffered, Cummins suffered, up and down, Indiana certainly. Casket makers in Lynn, Indiana suffered because of steel. Astro
Industries.
Yeah. Right? So, I mean, we've seen what happened, and I know that USMCA is supposed to bring in. It started July 1st, and that's supposed to, kind of correct some of the issues and the problems, but there's been such damage that it's
USMCA is the replacement for NAFTA, which is the United States, Mexico, and Canada.
Yes, yeah. So, I mean, I believe we're going the right way. I hope we are. I don't think time is, we haven't had that much time to really see where we're going. But I don't think this is the person and this is the administration to right the ship. They just don't seem. I don't know. I just don't see things progressing in the way.
The art of the deal.
Yeah. Well, someone said the other day that nothing that Donald Trump has done has ended well. And
I don't know. We've had some pretty good peace agreements that have come out in the Middle East that have come from the Trump administration.
Those are all worth the napkin they're written on, man. I can't tell you how many times Bill Clinton solved peace in the Middle East. Zach, do you have a count over there on how many times this has happened?
No, but I can recall being a kid and seeing the same.
First
guys
time in my
shaking
lifetime.
hands.
I mean, we should say.
Right.
Oh, Bill Clinton did it once every
see.
6 months. They never. Not to be the naysayer, but Tom, they don't stick, right?
I mean, I'm just
because we keep getting involved.
I had no hope for any Republican administration when it came to foreign affairs. And
what is the foreign affairs plan?
Drop more bombs on people that don't look like us.
Right. Surprised with everything that I've heard from military members. It sounds everyone that I personally know that are members of the military have been pleased with the way that things have been going. Which, I mean, that's not enough for me to give my unequivocal endorsement, but it's enough for me to go, maybe it's not as bad as what I feared it would be, So, I mean, I guess that's one positive, but, you take that in strides. There's also coming from people who have vested interests.
Tom buzzed in over there.
Sorry, Tom.
No, but
we're going to get to you on trade tariffs.
Yeah. The biggest positive I've seen from this administration has been reducing totally outdated business regulations. And I mean, that really goes with the last topic of, that there's a lot of expenses some of my manufacturing clients have had for years that have done nothing for anybody that they no longer have. And that has allowed them to
but
increase
how
their
are we
wages.
protecting those businesses that used to provide the ridiculous regulation compliance?
Exactly. Yeah. Those are the people that are out of the ones that were making money off those regulations, who were then contributing to congressional campaigns, believe it or not.
Protecting their little corner of it, right?
Yeah. But of course, China is one of our biggest trade partners. It's one of our biggest problems. And there comes a point where you say, should we be having free trade with a nation that's not a free nation? I mean, I think of, just in my little practice over the years, I've had 3 clients go out of business because Chinese companies jumped on their patents, illegally produced their products, and there's nothing they can do about it.
Yeah, you do have a very real issue where they don't respect intellectual property.
And I think, okay, if I'm one small CPA operating in Randolph County, Indiana, and I've had 3 clients, how much is this a problem in our country? It's like, I'm not a fan of tariffs, but if you say, okay, we got to raise minimum wage to $15 an hour, and then make these companies compete against the companies in China paying $2 an hour.
Yeah, like Foxconn, where they literally have nets on the outside of the buildings to stop people from jumping to their deaths because the conditions are so horrible.
Yeah. And at what point do you just say, hey, you know what? We're not going to trade with you until you stop, crack down on this, until you improve your working conditions.
Yeah.
What's that do to manufacturers who are American based and they say, well, I'm having all of my stuff sourced in China. So now you've potentially ripped them the other direction, and now they've just lost their manufacturing base for their products.
Tough luck, bucko. Find a trading partner inside of the America.
Well, and the biggest thing,
support American jobs.
I've seen it over my lifetime of how the U.S. has become a consumeristic society. I mean, you say people can't live on one paycheck anymore. Well, growing up, we had 1 car. We didn't have 3 cars like families do now. We had 1 television. There wasn't a television in everybody's bedroom.
But have you seen how cheap TVs are now, Tom? Chinese, that's an $89 TV over there.
Jeremiah and his friends just go buy TVs, not because they need TVs. They'll find a place for the TV, but the TV's cheap.
Yeah.
I do think there's some merit to that, though. I mean, even in my family, sometimes I'm thinking there's excess. There's just excess. We could probably do really, if we wanted to kind of cut some corners and lean some things, we could come down probably to 1 household. I don't want to like everybody else, but I think it's doable.
Yeah. I've been amazed watching my kids and their friends of how many of them have 1 earner in their household and they make it work.
We have, my wife quit her job right before my son was born. And it was a decision that we came to together. We can make this work, and it is worth sacrificing the income to have you stay at home, because most psychological research indicates that if you have a parent that stays home with a child in their early development, then they fare better later in life. So that was a decision we came to together. And then it got me thinking, why can't most Americans also make this decision for themselves?
I think more people in your generation are making that decision, you realize. And that can also be part of why my clients can't find workers, because y'all are staying home with your kids now.
And that's
definitely happening.
Instead of families having 8 kids, we're having 1 or 2 or none, right? That's also, we are not very good at repopulating right now.
No, we're not. That's a different issue. How would the federal government mandate 4 children households?
It's true. My grandfather was much more of a sex symbol than I'll ever be. I don't know how. I know that my grandmother had 13 kids, and I know it was because she couldn't keep her hands off. I'm quite certain.
I was going to say you are not as irresistible as Jeannine's father was.
Hey, trust me.
So,
yes,
Tom, the pandemic has also exposed the most vulnerable people that are in our society. Those who are elderly, those in New York, we saw that the highest indicator that someone would be hospitalized was just simply obesity as a factor. It has also showed how unhealthy our society has become. So what do you think the federal government can do to help citizens make better decisions, like farming subsidies we've talked about on this show, unfortunately encourage poor dietary habits in America. And then also we're going to go into taxpayer-funded healthcare with this as well.
I mean, for one thing, people need to stop looking to the government to solve every problem. Looking at the pandemic, I think our federal government's response to that is what we see in so many issues. It's like, okay, what can we do with it? I mean, what can the federal government really do except for throw money at things? Money it doesn't have. And, we threw trillions of dollars out to everyone instead of taking any targeted approach to really protect anybody.
PPP loans, good move. The greatest.
That sums it up. It's difficult. It's a very
I mean, quite frankly, there are some restaurant people and entertainment people that kept them in business.
Yeah.
There's also a lot of I have clients that took an immediate hit that got PPP loans, but then rebounded quickly.
Was it Adam?
They didn't really need the money.
Adam Schiff,
none of them are sending it back.
Yeah, Adam Schiff. I think he's an investment banker, or I don't think he's a banker. I think he's just one of those people that sends out an email that tells you what stocks to buy. And he was able to get his business a PPP loan, and he had I think 25 employees that he was just able to send and work from home. And his whole point was, I didn't need to do this. See how easy you made this. He's like, I'm a multi-billionaire and I was able to get this money for free. You look at what you've done, pretty much. It was, I think that he was able to expose some of the flaws in that thinking. But then on the same side, there's a lot of local restaurants that if they hadn't gotten that money, they wouldn't be opening their doors back up.
Right. And hopefully if they pass another round of stuff, it's more targeted. I mean,
yeah,
I understand, okay, they felt like we have to get this out quickly, so we're just going to shoot out to everybody. Well, hopefully anything further, the business would have to show that, hey, I've been seriously impacted, and if we can't do something, we've got to close our doors and put people out of work.
So if you're looking, if Tom Ferkinhoff's in Congress next year and they come around and they say, hey, Tom, what can you live with? Can you live with another round of business loans? Can you live with another $1,200 an individual, $2,400 a couple? What's the kind of thing that might be acceptable to Congressman Ferkinhoff?
I mean, I think first of all, we've got to get rid of the bonus unemployment. And then for business loans, they need to show that they've been impacted and make this round truly loans. I mean, they've had their forgivable, the grant that was called a loan. And so, it should come just like the EIDL, basically expand the EIDL program where they can get actual loans.
EIDL.
Economic impact, something like disaster loan.
Okay.
Because, and some businesses got those and the PPP loans, but the EIDLs do have to be repaid other than there's an initial grant factor on them, and most of them, but some program like that where they, and in this round, okay, they've now had 9 months of operations since the first, or I guess 7. Well, by the time they hit in January,
about 8 months.
There'll be 9 months of operations since the shutdowns and different things. That okay, give us 6 months of financial statements to show what the impact has been and that you've been impacted. And there is now time to underwrite these things and get it to those companies that really are hurting.
Does Zach get another $3,000? What'd you guys get? 1,200 times 1,200. And what's a kid worth?
I think there were 500. So I think we got $3,400.
So $3,400. Does Zach get another $3,400 or no?
No.
Look him in the eye.
I mean,
No.
I think the latest stats showed that like 40% of that money is still sitting in people's savings account.
Mine's not.
40%.
Ours isn't either.
40%
Ours
gets
went
spent on
straight
things
to
like people buying new
college.
TVs or paying off debts they already had. But it's like 20% actually went to people that were impacted by COVID.
Now, I'll be honest. We did a lot of local carry out at the time. I went around to the restaurants that had like carry out only. Primo. I took my bike to the local bike shop, got it fixed up. So I tried. I was like, this is the point of this money is not for me to sit on it. And so I actually tried to take mine and spend it as much locally as I could.
So
and spread it around.
Back to the health issue though. Your opinion is more of
we're gonna get back to
take some personal responsibility and just make healthier decisions for yourself.
I mean, I don't see where the government's ever taken control of something that should be somebody's personal responsibility, and it's made a big difference.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, that's true. But
we
also have a horrible food pyramid that is still encouraged in public schools.
The Morrell money went straight back to the federal government in student loan repayment. So We literally took the money and sent it right back the next week and said, "Here, take it off the top."
And if you actually think about the way money works, you actually just made that money disappear.
Yeah, it's gone.
Because when you pay back a debt, that money just kind of goes poof.
Gone. It's gone. But I was going to have to pay it back later, and now it's done with no interest. So, Jeannine, student loan interest has been gone all year for COVID. Mm-hmm. Zach got $3,400. I don't have any tax deductions running around, so I only got $2,400 in my house. I don't know if Dakota got to claim Jackson or not, depending upon when the birthday was. You guys got the 24.
He'll get an extra $500 on his tax return next year.
Will he?
Yeah, he'll get it on next year.
Man.
Nice.
You got it.
We've already talked about this on this show.
Oh, I forget. I've drank since then.
Yeah, because I looked it up because I was like, that's a bummer. And then I looked it up and somebody's like, oh yeah, because it's considered a tax credit, so he'll get it on his return.
So this next go around, you'll get it. All right, Jeannine, pick from the menu. What's Congresswoman Lake doing for COVID relief in January of 21?
Well, I think we do. Obviously, we need another stimulus package. I don't see the one stimulus pandemic working really well. I think that people still have one. I mean, what did you say? There's 30% that's still supposedly in savings. Yeah, I don't think those are.
Well, you need to raise taxes to get that out of there.
I know.
I need that back.
I know a lot of people that were just waiting on that money to really, to get by. Also, I think that I have a different take on the PPP loans. I have a lot of friends that have owned businesses that needed that money, and then they were able to stay afloat. Unfortunately, I know that there were some black businesses. I think up to 35 to 50% of black businesses that have closed during COVID. It's astronomical.
It's been a huge number.
It's been a huge number of people. In fact, we own the Good News newspaper, and we had our first issue that published yesterday since January. We just had no advertisers, so everyone, the people that we typically had that were employment advertisers, they didn't feel the need to do that right then, and some other places. So we're back on track. I got just a small amount of the PPP myself, and so for my business. So I was glad that it kind of buffered us a little bit to be able to stay afloat. But I also know a couple of businesses that received up to $10,000 or so. So they took the money and then they opened and then nobody came. So, there's that. The business that they've had for 10, 15 years, they were trying to, they were still trying to, stay afloat, and it just didn't happen. So what happens to those businesses if they don't get another shot at that? So I think I hope the government takes another look at it. Congressman Greg Pence called it a disaster. So he came a little bit further than you did, Tom.
And that's why I'm saying it has to be targeted.
Right.
It has to be targeted to those people. And just, the fact they had to spend it on payroll. Well, if they're behind on their rent and this money's got to go to payroll, it doesn't help them stay open.
Very much so.
Nobody has a place to work if the building's gone, right?
Yeah.
All right, Dakota, where are you taking us next?
Taxpayer funded healthcare in America. Bernie Sanders it's just been a big topic for quite some time, and it's become even more popular now. Would you support like a Medicare for all system, or would you support like a Biden care?
Well, I think that I like to listen to the Medicare for all argument, but I think since we're getting ready, it sounds like unless the polls are wrong again, which they could be from 2016, but it looks like Biden, may become our next president. Obviously, he's not wanting to go back and dismantle the ACA. That's what he and Barack Obama built. So that's they wanting to be part of the mend it, not end it program. To look at, premiums, why they're so high and why access is so, has been, decreased. So I'm open to discussions on Medicare for all. I think that Medicare for all, one of the things that I think it would be good for is, young people like my son. He just came off of our plan. He's just turned, 28. So he's been off for a couple of years, but he doesn't have a lot of health problems and a lot of health issues. Medicare for all might be able to be something for people that age that don't have tons of health issues and, crazy, outrageous bills, but they still need coverage. So then I'm open to that discussion. But I think I'm more toward ACA has already been passed. Obamacare, ACA is already, the law of the land. Let's figure out what it is. It's been gutted so much by this administration. It's been, probably unrecognizable in some instances, and on purpose to take healthcare away from 30 million Americans and 400,000 Hoosiers. So I think we should look at it. I think we should see what the issues and the problems are, and start there.
So, Tom, you are not a supporter of universal health care. I know this from the last interview we did.
Yeah, I think the further we get away from free market,
so
the more issues we're going to have.
I guess
You want healthcare like car insurance, where everybody just buys your own and goes and shops for it.
Making sure that they compete across state lines, opening up the market in health insurance.
Right, because I mean, nothing they're doing is bringing costs down. When you look at things like laser surgery, where it started out being $5,000, now it's $500. It's because it went to the free market.
LASIK, the laser eye surgery.
Right, LASIK, LASIK surgeries.
I don't want just some random part of me operated on by a laser, but maybe I'll trust one of my eyes to it.
No. Yeah, and so, some of the things like transparent pricing and.
We have transparent pricing in Indiana, and it still costs thousands of dollars to have a child. Mm-hmm. It was I met my out-of-pocket max for the year of 2020. So I don't know how big of a difference that made.
What should it cost though? In Dakota,
I have no idea.
It's not exactly insignificant. I think there is a significant cost to going to the hospital and delivering a kid and paying for it.
But we got
what level of care do you want? Like when we had kids, we didn't have ultrasounds. Now somebody has a kid, they have 4 different ultrasounds along the way.
And that was a good thing
cost of $1,000
that we could pick with transparent care, was compare costs of how much on average it costs to have a child in each of these hospitals. We could also see what different things they offered, like Henry County Hospital. Whenever you first find out you're pregnant, you go and get an ultrasound. We chose Greenfield Hancock Community Health, and because they were significantly cheaper, and you only got one ultrasound at your 20-week appointment. So, that is one good thing that the state of Indiana has done, and I think that you're right in saying that it should be expanded on the national level.
So if you do that, then and you reach your out-of-pocket max, then at that point, aren't you no longer price conscious anyway? The hell with what it costs. I can go anywhere. You paid. If it's going to cost you $8,000 out of pocket, why do you care if it's cheaper or not? Because you're done paying. At that point, you're basically at the single payer where you're not paying anything for it. So why you no longer care about what the cost was?
If you met your deductible, you mean?
Right? Yeah, you paid your out-of-pocket $8,000 or $6,000 or whatever it is.
10,000.
10,000. Gosh, 10,000.
There's a certain
spicy.
I have a good union job too.
Do you?
Yeah, I do.
There's a certain freedom when you hit your deductible, which I do most years. Yeah, I had a friend I had a coworker who just had a baby. She posted a picture of her bill, and every time her son went to the nursery, which I'm not sure I know they're not telling you, hey, you want to send your child to the nursery, and they tell you how much it'll cost. But it costs $4,500 every time. Yep. So, and they sent it to try and get sleep. And like, oh, you need sleep. So
and
$18,000 of her bill was her son going to the nursery.
It's $4,500 every time that they go to the nursery. And one other dirty thing that they do is that obviously they were just born, so they're not on your insurance yet. So they make sure to make that bill out to the child, who is a non-insured patient in the hospital records. So then all of a sudden you just get a bill for $4,500. It doesn't even, and your insurance has no idea that you've been billed that money. That's exactly what happened to us. And we had a fight with the hospital about it, and had to make sure that they realized
your
that
baby couldn't fight.
Yeah, he couldn't fight for himself. And Jackson was born with and the first piece of mail he got was a $4,500 bill from the hospital in Greenfield.
Wow!
Because he had the audacity to stay there after he was born for a night.
Trying to read one of those bills from a hospital.
And that's the thing.
Insane.
Everyone always says, "Oh, make sure you ask for the itemized bill so that you can see, what charges you're made."
So we happen to have in the audience a medical billing expert that's messaging me the costs, and she says that right now a doctor's fee is normally around $2,300 for the
Delivery.
for the deal, and about $3,000 for the hospital itself.
But then you add in
Those are Arizona costs, not Indiana.
You add
costs.
in being induced. My wife had to be induced.
Well, that was
into
a luxury.
labor, and then you add in. Obviously, my wife had the epidural as well, so you have to count the anesthesiologist. If you have a problem with the epidural, then the anesthesiologist has to be called back in, and they have a minimum time requirement to just shove a needle into the IV bag. You know,
and then there's like MSRP pricing, and then there's like the actual price. They'll say,
Wow.
this is what we want to charge you.
It's amazing
And they're like,
and stupidly complicated.
And we'll write this off. And on my first son, when he was born, they wrote off $26,000 just saying, we can afford to not charge you this. And my two
Then
kids,
why charge you?
my two kids were born 3 years apart, same hospital, same number of days. Only difference, one was induced, one was she went into labor naturally. Everything else was exactly the same. Even Tuesday out of Saturday, first child was $56,000 and the second child was $125,000. 3 years apart.
Just the difference of being induced.
I don't even think it was just 3 years.
So, Tom, you're recommending shopping basically ahead of time and figuring out what the costs are and negotiating it, or how does this?
I mean, that's one big thing. And I think to say, regardless of what the plan is, whether it's private health insurance, Medicare for all, Affordable Care Act, people still have to take some personal responsibility for their health care and for their costs. And, you know, if we take the standpoint of, hey, somebody else is going to pay for this, costs are just going to keep going up.
It's a difficult, very nuanced situation that we find ourselves in with healthcare. All right, back to you, Jeannine. We'll just go straight to the point here. The Green New Deal. We've got the squad in Congress. Are you going to be teaming up with the squad and saying Green New Deal all the way?
Well,
You got your white dress picked out? Is that what you got? There are colors, aren't there?
I got my white dress and my red lipstick. No, I think there's some really great things in the Green New Deal. I understand the fact that it's a 10-year plan, I believe. And then going on to a 100-year plan. I believe in science. I believe in climate change. I believe that land, air, and sea are important. That regulations are important. That building, whatever we build now needs to be sensitive to the environment and what's good for our future children and putting out less pollution. I don't know enough about the Green Deal to say that I would sign on in totality. But I know that the heart of it is that we have to think about what is going to be best for our children. One of the things in Muncie, there was a big conglomerate that tried to come in, and they were going to put out like record numbers of pollution in terms of magnesium and some other harmful things into the community. And it was going to bring some jobs, but the residents of Muncie stood up against, I think it was called Waltz. It's been some time back now, and I think they're trying to move somewhere else.
Walt's
now.
Kiln. They went from Muncie. They looked at Rushville, and now they're up in. I want to say they're up in Cass County
they?
now, and they're protesting up there.
Yeah.
But that project has moved around. They're under at least their third location in Indiana. I know they've got a functioning operational site down in Alabama that is going, and they're trying to duplicate it in Indiana.
Right, and then who wants that for them and their children? I mean, we didn't, and so what? "Quote unquote" lucky community is going to get them. I think that I'm kind of offended sometimes when we think about the idea that that there are people that are science deniers, and that goes from everything from where climate change to the fact that
My thought has always been like, you can debate the merits of climate science and the predictions that they make, because their predictions don't have a very good track record of, when the ice caps are going to be totally melted. It's been going on for a long time. But where you have no basis for debate is the fact that we just, humans have a tendency to just trash the things around them And
Right.
if you want to have your children and your children's children raised in healthy, clean environments, like has been happening for the past 50 years or so, especially, then, maybe it would be a good idea to crack down on people who would do the environment harm. So, I think that would be a good way to, keep the debate from being about, the scare tactics that come
Right.
along a lot of times with talk of climate change, and just going, look, we want clean parks, we want clean trees, we want clean water, we want clean air. We don't want to go back to a time where you couldn't step outside in New York City because smog was so bad. But let's keep those things around, right?
Yeah.
Logansport. It's in Logan. Logansport is the new city.
Yeah.
So
Is that
that'd be
county?
Cass County.
Okay.
Yep.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
What do you think, Tom, about?
we all, every person on this earth leaves some environmental footprint. We all have some impact on the environment, and it's up to, we all need to be conscious of trying to keep that low. But it's just like when you're, this project in Muncie is a good example. We want to push toward electric cars. Well, for electric cars, those take a lot of battery manufacturing. Battery manufacturing takes chemicals. It takes mining. Some of these things that go into the batteries. Well, nobody wants that in our community. What do? We push it off into third world countries.
We end up with the NIMBY scenario where,
and so it's like we pollute somebody else's pool so we can swim in a clean pool. Mm-hmm. And, it's like, where's the balance in all that?
and that's the challenge we've had, and we've covered it on this program for our entire existence. We've had asphalt plants that haven't been able to locate here. We've had wind farm projects that haven't located here. We've had ethanol plants that haven't located here. Zach, am I missing any? What else have we said no to lately?
Oh, they're starting the war on solar.
Solar, yes, that's the new third rail, and these are both, I guess, in the Green New Deal conversation. What's the federal government's role in?
And we wonder why there's no good paying jobs in Newcastle.
Honestly,
it was
that's
good
been-
enough in 1970 when Chrysler was here, and we got to have them back.
Yeah, that has been brought up a lot. How many jobs would
Massive protests on the possible light industrial park going in on 300 and State Road 103 on the south side of town. What's the federal government's
ample
role?
land here. Put a nuclear plant.
We're going to have to add another lake. Westwood Reservoir is going to have to be used for cooling. What happens in Tom's view for federal policy? Or should the Congress be involved with solar and with wind and making policy regarding them? Coal, nuclear?
The U.S., we've been reducing our carbon emissions for 30 years now. And
Done a pretty substantial effort too. It's not been small.
It's just like with tax plans. They want everybody going into Congress to have their tax plan instead of saying, "Hey, at some point we've got it right. Let's just leave it alone for 10 years." And I think there's a lot of things that we just need to stay the course and keep doing what we're doing. The problem is other countries aren't doing that, and a lot of that is based on the U.S.'s demand for consumer goods that are being produced in that country, creating that pollution. It's like
every coal plant in the United States has got scrubbers in their cooling towers. And the only thing that we're releasing is small amounts of carbon dioxide and water vapor into the atmosphere. There's not a single scrubber in a cooling tower in China, India, any other place around the world, manufacturing powerhouses who are consuming more energy than the United States is. So which makes their energy cost lower and makes their products cheaper. So we'll go to Walmart and buy it. Right. It becomes a very difficult situation. And one good thing that the government has done in this area is instead of punishing outright a lot of companies, which they have done a lot of punishing of companies that don't follow environmental regulations, but there's also been a lot of good incentivizing companies to follow the environmental regulations, which is something that we talked about with State Senator Mike Kreider whenever he came on the show, was incentivizing versus
penalties.
Carrot
versus stick. So, Jeannine, you've talked to some Henry County voters over the last couple of years. Mm-hmm. Wind and solar, have you been hearing that from our folks?
They're not down for that. Yeah.
Now, Randolph County's in the district, and they're building wind farms right now.
Right. I always wonder what the difference is. When I'm not necessarily going to take sides on that, Jeremiah.
Well, and that's the conversation is should the federal government be involved in that?
Yeah.
Because that a lot of these wind farms are getting built because the federal government has said, hey, we're going to require a certain amount of this to be an input in there.
Yeah.
And that's a part of the Green New Deal conversation, right?
I think these are conversations that every community needs to have. They have their reasons. I've been on both sides. There's a kind of a similar issue going on in Shelby County right now.
Solar in Shelby County.
Yeah.
I'm all over the place.
I know. I see this. I'm like, wow. And I think that's one of their issues is that they've changed some ordinances, some local ordinances over there.
They like to do it.
Yeah.
County commission just takes 2 votes.
All it takes.
You got a new set of rules. They're coming in January.
And
here.
the community is just, they're up in arms. So I try not to take sides. I stand there. I listen to the information. I try to hear what the local residents say. And as amazing as it is, what works in Randolph County may not be exactly what they want in Henry County.
So that's the reality is that as a congresswoman, you would represent 19 counties.
Right.
19 of Indiana's 92 counties to be in your district. And a lot of times what happens at the federal level is you're incentivizing those companies, the Next Eras and who are the other boogeymen on the radar? Calpine. And those companies try to locate in areas that have enough wind, and they come to Henry County, and then they've got their the
Didn't you guys chase them out a few years ago?
Yeah,
was that just a couple of years ago?
Some people have said that wind is dead, and some people say no, it's not dead at all. So we're going to hit it. We're going to flip the dead horse over, and we're going to poke it with a stick a couple more times to make sure.
It's like a boogeyman. In
the we are forever scarred.
It is a great thing to campaign on.
I'm steering clear of that.
And no, for county issues, but that's the conversation I guess that I think you're going to be faced with in the Green New Deal is energy policy, and are there going to be incentives coming from Congress dealing with energy? And hey, we're going to promote this behavior, and say yes, we like wind and solar, but no, we don't like coal, or that's
coal is coal cleaner than people give it credit for, though?
According to Dakota, the emissions are darn near nothing.
Well, it's not darn near nothing, but it is a lot cleaner than what it was like in the 70s.
All right.
It's just, it's carbon. You're not going to have coal combusting power plants and even factories, if they still exist, I don't know, that are 100% clean.
Right.
Natural gas, yeah. Natural gas has barely any emissions that contribute to climate change and greenhouse gas effects. Coal is getting a lot better. I think that in the future we could, if we continue to innovate on all fronts instead of focusing all energy on renewable sources, if we also went, how can we make this energy source better while it is still available to us, then I think that the market could do a lot of good there, because I think there would probably be a market for that. However, it's become a boogeyman, right? It's become a thing of coal. Just look at it; it's dirty. If you touch it, it's gross. So it's just one of those things that I don't know if that stigma is ever going to be removed from the public's mind. But, there's a lot of things that we could do to incentivize nuclear power expansion in the United States. It's safe, it's clean, it's effective. Natural gas, continuing to expand natural gas. A lot of our energy production has been switching to natural gas. And it's a good system, and it's extremely clean. And I think we would do well to continue going down the road that we're on, honestly.
So that's probably enough preaching from us. Mm-hmm. We are getting to the point in the show where we're all going to turn into pumpkins, and we've got to start going home and editing and getting ready to be a part of the working economy, because none of us have the job Greg Pence does, where we get to just fly into North Carolina and raise money for somebody, and then go back to nap time. So, I guess final thoughts are going to start. We'll go over to Zach. You got anything we need to talk about?
As always, I'll push some L and K. Kate was here last week. I'm just trying to look up. I do have a gripe I'm going to bring up. Is that daylight savings time?
Oh my gosh,
strikes this weekend.
Sunset already.
Sunset on Sunday is going to be 5:37 in the afternoon. I'm going to say the afternoon, because the evening starts at 6.
Love
That's
it.
awful.
Love
Because
it. I want it to be pitch black whenever I lay down in bed at 8 p.m.
The problem is it's going to be pitch black. Like I'm thankful I'm still working from home.
I was going to say, in the wintertime, I never see daylight at home.
And the problem is for those of us like that have jobs, and Dakota has a job, so I don't know why he would want this either. You leave
I get off at 3
in the dark.
It's daylight.
You get home in the dark. Well, some of us have jobs with longer hours. And if I was,
my work day starts at 7, so it's dark whenever I'm at work now.
We work the same hours.
3 and go to work at 7.
7 to 3 with no real. They take a
7
lunch, but it's a fake lunch.
Okay.
It's a whole thing.
That's
why it costs so much for your coal power plant.
I don't get a
my
lunch
schedule
break.
too is 7 to 3, and just 5:37, and we're still 7 weeks from the shortest day of the year.
December, Christmas time. I'm for fast time all year round. I don't know why we depress ourselves. If we're faking it for 7 or 8 months out of the year, the heck with it. Let's just go to fast time all year round. Never change our clocks and keep the hour in the evening where you can use it productively.
I'm fine with it. It helped jobs. It helped the economy in the state of Indiana.
It'll cut down.
Mitch Daniels knew what he was doing. Okay,
we're all depressed as you can be over COVID at this point. Anyway, we don't need a little bit more of the
I would just like
winter
to say,
blues because we're losing daylight.
We don't need nuclear enhanced seasonal affective disorder for everybody.
I'll tell you what, if Trump signed an executive order now that says we're not changing times and we're just fast time all through the winter, I might consider voting that way just for that miracle.
There was talk of doing that. Like there were some states that were saying
one time.
They're saying
no time
nothing
change.
else. They're like 2020's been rough enough.
Yeah.
Let's not hit everybody with this because it is. If you have, let's see how much Dakota likes it with Jackson around. Because guess who doesn't observe daylight savings time? Children.
And dairy cows. I've heard dairy cows don't either. But
the corn burns. The dairy cows no good.
If they can't read a clock or they don't care about clocks, then they don't care.
It sounds like some of y'all just need to go to Australia for the wintertime and Alaska for the summer, so you get 20-hour days all year long.
Just pure sunlight.
Just do the sprint.
With this remote work thing, it probably could be done.
Yeah,
I couldn't drive I can't drive through Canada to get there, so I'd have to fly to Alaska. What was me?
Jeannine, how do people contact your campaign if they have any more questions? How do they donate money in this last week?
Okay.
You might need it.
Well, can I just get back really quickly to the daylight saving things and give you guys a tip as a housewife and a mother that that you have that lag because the change or whatever. Always eat the night before and then the next day a couple of bananas. Did they tell you that? You need some potassium because it's going to kind of mess with your body system. And so that's what I've heard. It makes it a little bit easier.
A couple bananas.
Yeah. I don't know about the potassium. Anyways, so yeah, Jeannine Lee Lake for Congress.com. We also have our political pages on Facebook, which are Jeannine Lee Lake for Indiana. And then there's a politician, Jeannine Lee Lake. I have a personal page that I had started by interns, I think in just after Mark Zuckerberg opened up the non-Harvard people. So I've had that personal page for a really long time. I'm not getting rid of it, but it mixes political, personal, faith, things like that. And that's just Jeannine Lee Lake. But the other ones are how you get in touch with me. You can donate at the website, and we would love to have anybody join in and see what I've got.
Did you work out all your campaign finance stuff too, by the way?
I did.
You got some nasty letters from the Republicans.
Oh my gosh. Yes, I did. That was a whole thing, Jeremiah. I tell you what, it made me realize that this time when we end, we're not going to be broke because as a new candidate, I just spent every last dime that I had on whatever it is, advertising things for the campaign, not realizing that I would still need an accountant to take care of the FEC reports that I would have. And so I had to come out of my own money for that. I didn't have the money for that. I had 2 kids in college. And so I just kind of thought, we'll get to it. I'm not even sure I'm going to run in 2020. Well, even though I was among tens of thousands of candidates across the country, even admitted by the local GOP chair, Victor Whitehead, that were late in my FEC reports. They took it upon themselves to file that complaint. So I kind of did it to myself. I wish we haven't been late since then. We've been filing regularly. And this time we have saved some money back to be able to take care of those.
Does the tax office of Tom Ferkinhoff offer a closing campaign? services.
I try to stay away from FEC.
Yeah, you live and you learn. It's the first time a campaign person. But I always say this, make sure everybody knows, delay does not mean impropriety. Delay just meant I was late. No dings, no impropriety. It was fine. We got it taken care of.
Very good. Anything else? Volunteers, y'all putting out more signs or anything else that's going on?
We're done. We're done with the signs. Yeah, we're done with the signs. I've got some. I'm going to be spending Election Day. I'm going to start, I think, in Columbus, head up to Wayne County, head here for a little bit, and then I'm going to end the day in Delaware County at my house. And so we're going to have a victory party. We're going to celebrate just the campaign and just the idea. We put everything we possibly can forth for this 2020 event. If there's ever a time that I think that the mantle can be brought down, the Pence name, I think this might be the year, because I think Mikey's going home.
1992 is the last time that this area had a Democrat in Congress.
It's been Phil Sharp.
It's been a minute.
I think and have we ever had a woman in this district?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
I'm quite certain we have not.
Yeah, I'm quite certain. I'm thinking, you know what? I feel like not only is it time for that, but it's time to make history. I'm ready for it.
All right, Tom. If we elect the very first Libertarian, how's it happen? What's your schedule on Election Day? Wayne County, you working?
I think, last year for the whole early voting period and Election Day, I mean, we had people, myself included, going around to poll places around the district. I mean, I was in about 5 different counties on Election Day last year. This year with COVID, people don't want somebody trying to hand them something
right.
Or getting close to them to have a conversation with them. I've actually got a meeting for a big project down in Cincinnati I was called in on. People are coming from a couple different states, business owners, on Election Day. So I'll be in a business meeting on Election Day this year.
Doing the work of the people.
Doing the work of helping those businesses recover from COVID to put together a plan to keep their employees working. And that's really been, a lot of what I've been doing for the last 4 or 5 months is, helping.
You said this has been one of your busiest summers, and it's mostly been in COVID, response to COVID.
Yeah, definitely. It's been the business consulting side of it has just been 10 hours a day.
Crazy. How do people get more information on the campaign? Any of that?
They can go to my Facebook page, Ferkinhoff for Congress. Go to the website, ferkinhoff2018.com. I specifically did that so I have to remind myself of if I keep doing this when it originally started and how long I've been doing this. And then we'd actually kind of looked at changing it this summer, and then when it's like, okay, there's no events to go to, there's no parades to go to, there's no that. It's like we're not going to.
Maybe in 22 it'll be Ferkinhoff 22. We don't know yet.
Maybe, or we'll just keep it so we can see how long we've been trying to slay this dragon.
He's just a huge Kyle Busch fan, is what it is.
Yeah.
The 20 and the 18. It's just all Joe Gibbs racing. There you go. All right, Dakota, you got final thoughts for me?
Yep. I want you to go to my wife's page and buy some tumblers from her, custom tumblers. She can make a Tom Ferkinhoff for Congress tumbler. Nice. She can make a Jeannine Lee one. She can do anything that you want. She does a great job. And then also
the Dainty Daisy on Facebook.
Oh, yeah. I forget to mention the page.
I'll help.
Oops. And then also I go onto my Facebook page and I have some things that I've been working on, and it's going to be really interesting, but I'm going to keep it a secret. So you just have to keep an eye out.
All right. From me, real quick, I think Thursday next week we're going to do a host show. We're going to do a little election recap and decompress, see what happens. We're
going to talk about how the election results are still not in yet.
We'll see what happens.
And our republic is in chaos.
We're going to see if we're sending Mr. Ferkinhoff to Washington, see if we're sending Jeannine to Washington, see if Don Rainwater is going to be elected governor. I'll be on the other side of the building over here on Tuesday night. We're having a victory party. I don't know what we're celebrating yet, but it's some sort of election night celebration at 1102 Race Street.
Just put the campaign ads in. That's a victory enough.
It's done. We're celebrating. We're moving on.
No more Sparks and Hale ads.
So I worked from home yesterday, and my lovely bride and I watched the Channel 13 news, and I was shocked at the lunch news that every single commercial I was so wishing to see an Andy Moore ad and something to tell me to go buy something from John Phillips, and instead it was just hail and sparks,
Oh
and then there was Ruckelhaus has got the ghost of Dick Lugar doing ads for him now. And I'm pretty sure that Winesapple and Rokita are both horrible people. Everybody's Bobby Newport this year. That's what I learned on the Channel 13.
Newport. That might be the pickup we need after daylight savings time. Is you get like a down 48 hours, and then the campaign ads stop, and all of a sudden you're like, the sun comes out. It's just like, oh,
the birds are chirping again.
I can't wait yet to see it anymore. Just can I get one Don's Guns ad, please?
I'm
Where's
so
Bob
hard.
Rohrman when you need him?
Well, rest in peace.
Rest in peace. Sorry.
Bob Rohrman.
I don't normally see these ads, but for whatever reason, we turned the news on, and it was like
Bombarding.
it was I had no immunity to it. It was there. I didn't have any scabs preventing me from just the full onrush of the political ads.
I don't watch anything that's not on the DVR anymore.
Yeah, that's what I am. It was just the magic of turning it on and seeing it. And I was like, oh my God.
What do you guys make of Congressman Pence having all these television ads?
I think he's scared.
I think he is.
He's running scared. Hell, he's campaigning in Hamilton County, and I'm still trying to figure that
And
one out.
Rushville. I think that's bizarre, but maybe, he's got the money, but it's still, he kept the money last time. He's not keeping the money this time.
He's ready to serve again. All right.
Is he? Or just... Okay, we'll leave it at that.
I have a fun thing that I got. So one of the many, we're on the Weird Libertarians Network. There's 1,000 group chats that run all of this, and one of the group chats there's a very nice anarchist named Tricia Stewart Mann, and she got rejected from 3 different Facebook groups that were for crockpot recipes. She could not get admitted to a crockpot Facebook group to save her life.
She just wanted to make
So she made her own
ribs.
So she made her own, and it is the anarchist crockpot group. There's about 100 people in there now. And my wonderful wife is taking it seriously, and it's worked out nicely because I had a great pot roast tonight. I've just used it as an opportunity to make jokes.
Jeremiah is not taking it seriously. I was trying to figure out, he invited me. I was like, what is this? And then the first thing I see is him asking if it's okay or not to use a crock pot liner. And if
you're a Catholic,
yeah,
I don't know.
Can you use a crock pot liner? And I was
my goodness.
So this is what we're doing. But I see some real posts, and they're posting like serious stuff. I'm like, oh, okay. It's just Jeremiah being Jeremiah. Right? And I'd heard about the person being rejected, but I hadn't put them together as to why I was in it.
That's why that Facebook group exists.
An anarchist crockpot group.
I want to be a part of the anarchist.
I will add you in.
Oh, please do.
I hope you can get through these people.
So in there.
The recipes are good, but then there's also some people that are just there for the shock value.
That's all right.
Welcome
I'm
to the
here for
internet.
it.
I'll be your guide. But check out Trish's crockpot group. I will add Jeannine tonight.
Please do.
We will see you all next week, and somebody's going to be a congressman.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to the Boss Hog of Liberty, which is part of the We Are Libertarians Network. I am Chris Spangle, and I am the founder of this network, and I invite you to listen to all of our shows, which you can find at WeAreLibertarians.com or by searching for these in your podcatcher. The flagship show is the We Are Libertarians podcast, where we apply libertarian principles to current events. The Brian Nichols Show is a conversation amongst Republicans, Democrats, Libertarians, Independents, as they talk about what is happening in the news. And we have many other podcasts like The Chris Spangle Show, Upward, The Cost, Raw Audio Politics, Miranda's World, and Tad Talk, which is quite a ride. So check all of these out. Go to WeAreLibertarians.com and you can check out all of our great podcasts. Thanks for listening. Thank you for listening to the We Are Libertarians Network. Get our other shows at WeAreLibertarians.com.